I've just returned from the 2025 Pokemon World Championships where I did not perform that well. Today I'm going to talk about my deck list, kind of what led me to the deck list, my matchups, and kind of how the tournament went. I like to be fully transparent even in tournaments where I don't do necessarily very well, so I'm glad you guys are here and watching with me because not every tournament can be a perfect tournament. There's some times where days will be rough and things can go wrong, and ideally you want it to be because of luck, not because your own play was poor. That's my biggest thing. My name is Rahul. As you guys can see here, I finished 488th at this year's World Championship, dropping at a record of 2, 3, and 1 when I could no longer advance to the second day of competition. I chose to play Gardevoir to the surprise of no one. Gardevoir is a deck that I've been kind of reluctant to play, but it's been kind of the most powerful deck in the last couple of months. Since April to now, it's felt like the best deck. Goldango has been recently the bully on the block. It feels like that was the deck to beat. And as you guys saw, a lot of the Goldango decks were putting in tech cards for each other. We saw Piper Lapine and their group play the Togekiss. We saw our group, Johnning and Gang, play the Chansey. We saw other groups playing Sarilege Briar. Everyone had something for the mirror. And so I kind of didn't want to play the Goldango Chansey deck because I was scared of the cornerstones of these like cards that might come out of nowhere and deal with us. So I wasn't really a fan of flipping coins. So we kind of landed back on this Gardevoir deck. So the idea behind this version of Gardevoir is that Jellicent was super hyped coming into the format. Everyone was talking about Jellicent and how broken it was and how good it's going to be. But as the first couple of weeks developed online, everybody was teching for Jellicent. Everybody was playing like Iron Bundle and all their decks for boss in Goldango. And so the deck got worse and worse and worse. And then as we got closer and closer to Worlds, people were playing like, heavier charms. Drifloon was making its way back into the deck. And at that point, people were putting in Scrapper and cards like those. And Bundle and Monkey Dory started leaving the decks. So Isaiah and Henry kind of came to the conclusion that if we just went back into this strategy, we could kind of beat a lot of decks, especially if we can chain Jellicent. That Goldango doesn't necessarily have the easiest time against that because you can just chain your Jellicent, put them in a tough spot, and if they miss for like 2 turns, you can start racing them actually. And if you can start racing Goldango, it's like pretty easy to win the game, especially if they go wide. You have Clefairy as an attacker, etc., etc. Now, the Jellicent and Frillish are also like really good in a lot of other matchups. Like in the Grim matchup, going in early with Jellicent or Frillish specifically is really strong because they just can't do a lot when they're getting Oceanic Gleamed early, or they're just taking a lot of damage from the Jellicent while having no way to get to Grimmsnarl early. Obviously, if they have a super broken start and get like Evo or something and they just put themselves in a good spot, it's really scary. But putting the Jellicent up, it's like a lot of pressure that they can't really answer early. We chose to go with 2 CC over 1 boss this time around because we're going to be playing from behind in a lot of matchups. The Guardian Mirror still feels super favored with the Jellicent. We have Jellicent plus Devo, so they just can't really advance their board state very easily, and we can just put a lot of pressure on while they're like trying to establish Screamtail and get to items. Guardian has a lot of items in this current iteration, so if you can't get to play your items, the deck kind of crumbles sometimes. So if we get to play items and they don't, that's the idea. Pretty much the matchups across the board felt pretty good. Goldango and Grim felt really, really close, but I think super winnable still. That was the idea behind the deck. Execution, I'll go over it. So I locked this in like probably on Wednesday when I got there. Like I got to the venue at like Monday night, where everyone was already there for a couple days. They were talking, and Isaiah's like, "We're playing Guardy," and I kind of like looked around and wanted to see if there was anyone else that had a better idea. Xander and the other guys came up with a Chansey deck, which was like intriguing to me, but I didn't want to play it. I was like, I don't know if I want to play Chansey and flip some coins because they were like every matchup comes down to a 50-50, and I'm like, I don't like that. Even though Guardy's already like a 50-50 deck, I figured I'd use my own skill and abilities to get through the tournament rather than put myself on a little bit of luck, which might have been the wrong approach. I mean, last year I played Lugia because I didn't feel like I played Drago, so it's like the same situation, right? Like this year I felt more comfortable that I could play the skill-based deck versus last year where I played the RNG deck that we had in our possession. So like who knows, maybe the Goldango Chansey deck would have done better for me. But here are my matchups. The day was very short for me. The round one I played against the name is in Japanese, but it's Nakayama-san. He was playing Dragapult. But he wasn't actually playing Dragapult. He actually got to a win and lost to Henry as well, which is kind of funny because we're the only 2 people. He lost to me, Benny, and Henry, which are all in the same group. He was playing Dragapult Blaziken. So the first game, he got to go second, and I saw he opened Dreepy. So I kind of went for a traditional, like, set up my Guardy start. Assumed I'm getting Badoo here. He ended up setting up this Torchic and Blaziken. The second turn, I had a chance to go into Oceanic Gloom, but I opened Frillish, so I was going to go Jellicent and attack with Jellicent, or I could go Jealous and Evo that turn, and I think that would put on a lot of pressure because I assume these decks don't play like more than like 2 or 3 boss tops. And finding it's really difficult for these decks, plus like having like the candy pieces. But I prized Jellicent, so I had to just go for an. I thought like, do I do have an Oceanic Gloom or do I just Evo up my Curlia, or do I just Evo up my Curlia into a Guardy and like get to play the game? So I Evoed up, and then the next turn my opponent went for a pet like knockout on my Furlish after going Candy Guardian on Blaziken. Or sorry, yeah, right, Candy out to Blaziken and knocking me out with Dragapult, and then I went for the 3 prize turn with Mew, and then they were able to respond in kind by bringing up my Guardian using the Baby Patch to stall it, and then it came down to the end game where I basically won with an Iona to 1 and said, "You're not going to be able to find your Ursaluna," um, and they didn't find their Ursaluna. And then the next game, the tables turned a little bit where I prized pretty poorly, but I went into the Jellicent early and they were able to knock that out. And then I had to make a pretty much gut read by Ioning them to 1 while the Ursaluna was active after they knocked out my Clefairy and just hit into it with Guardy and say, you can't get around this. And they weren't able to get around it, which was like super fortunate for me because I think if game 2 had gone in their favor, it would have been a guaranteed tie because we were like pretty much a minute away from turns. So this deck was really cool, but unfortunately I had played against it a bunch on ladder, so I kind of knew what it was trying to do and kind of like all the tech options that it had. So when I saw the Baby Patch, I knew probably Ursaluna was their closeout, and like I knew that there were some of the cards in there that I expected. Next round I played against Haru, who's a very well-known player in Japan. Haru Nishikawa was playing this Dragapult deck that was built on trying to stop Gardevoir from playing the game, so once I commit all my energies, or I commit my board state, he can just go for Sudowoodo or Maractus to lock, while pushing up Cornerstone, which means that I can't Scream Tail around it. I have to actually hit into it, so if I don't have a Mew powered up, then I can't actually, I have no attackers that can hit into this Ogerpon. So the idea was there, and then you can just Penny and like Turo Loop incessantly, and then you have the Night Stretcher for Luminous to also like attack with any of your attackers that are there. Game 1, I have a really slow start, but I open Frillish. Then eventually Haru gets like a boss play where he takes out a bunch of guys on my board, leaving me with a lone Curlia. I'm able to like establish reestablish a board. But in the process, I go Mew Clefairy, and I have exactly enough energies to effectively close out the game because he had a Badoo on the board, or not a Badoo, but he had a Maractus on the board already, or Halucha, I think. Something I could like pop with enough damage counters with my Monkey strat. But I end up having my last 2 energies be prize card, or my last 2 prize cards be Psychic Energy after taking the Mew for 3 play. And I remember sitting there going, wow, this is really unfortunate. He ends up establishing the lock, and I concede pretty quickly after the lock is established because I have no way, because we're like 2-2 on monkeys. And so whatever I do, he gets plus 20 damage with the Maractus. And so we're just going to sit there going back and forth. And he'll like penny up whatever I put a ton of damage on at a certain point. And then he'll just keep like Maractus locking me and going back into the loop. And then game 2, we had like 25 minutes, and I was in a very commanding position to win. But obviously, Haru knows that the matchup is really bad for him. So he's going for the 1-0. And Haru's also like a known, like, he was taking his time, right? Like, he was taking his time, and he went for like the Sudowoodo lock and the Ogerpon lock, which is like his win condition. And I think if I had like 2 or 3 more minutes, I would end up winning the game, but it was pretty close, and I ended up losing it. So now I'm 1-1, and I go up against Summit, who's another US player. Summit is playing Dragapult Dusknoir. In the first game, Summit goes ahead, just like breaks. It was just like a bundle, like basically a bundle bench fez, not bundle. I was like open monkey bench fez pass. And so the game ended pretty quickly. It might have been Duskull, but it was something where the game ended like very, very quickly because Summit bricked. The second game comes down to a position where Summit Ionos me to 3 and puts me in a position where I need to effectively draw anything and I win the game. And for 3 turns, I pretty much don't draw anything and I end up losing. And then game 3, I'm full bricking, but I'm still in the game because I open Frillish, so I can kind of put some pressure on. And I top deck Monkey Dark, or he gives me Artisan and I get Dark. Not Artisan, sorry. I get Artisan and I have a Dark in hand, so I get the Monkey Dark established. It's not Artisan, it's Nestball, whatever. But I get a Monkey Dark established. And so now we're like trading. He was like Badoo, and then I go like move the damage back for Lish. And then he'll like CC up something, and I'm like, okay, I have a way to move this. And then I end up getting a Guardy up and running. And so I have 1 energy on my Frillish and 1 energy in the discard. So the 2 energies are all I'm using. And eventually he goes to an Iono to 3. And he like hits into my active with Dragapult this turn to like finally make a play. And I go into I hit the Clefairy, so I go into Clefairy, knock him out with Clefairy, but I put myself open to a CC Iono play that puts me in a lot of trouble because now all of the energies that I have are committed to this Clefairy. Yeah, I know. My 2 energies that I have are committed to Clefairy, and I think like for 4 turns we basically were going back and forth, doing nothing. And so in those 4 or 5 turns, I didn't draw a supporter whatsoever to play the game. I think I was an Arvin, maybe I thinned out my deck, but I didn't get to play the game. And then I end up losing because he ends up going into Ursaluna, CC's up my Gardevoir, and hits. and I lose the run out because I top decked Vessel and I Vessel for two. Um, yeah, I just couldn't get there. I couldn't get there at the end. Yeah, so I got out of 1-2, which is like pretty frustrating. You know, I'm now one loss away from elimination. And then I hit uh, this player from China. I don't want to mispronounce their name. They were playing. They were playing Ethan's Typhlosion, a deck that I'm all too familiar with, as you guys know on this channel. He actually has a really good start both games by getting like turn two Candy Pidgeot, going second, and I'm actually like put under a lot of pressure. But basically, what I wait to do is put a lot of damage on the Pidgeot, and then Devo and Iono them to like two or three, knowing that I'm going to lose prize cards this turn. And then when all their Ethans are gone, they have trouble finding the rest of their pieces. So then I just start attacking with Guardy and saying, hey, you can't one-shot me. And so game one, that's exactly what happened. Game two, it comes down to an Iono to one, and I didn't exactly know how many Gravity Mountains they were playing. And early in the game, he secret boxed away his Gravity Mountain to get Artisan, and he already used a Picnic Basket. So I was like, okay, well, this is all I have. I'm going to Iono you to one. I'm going to leave you with exactly one Quilava, and he doesn't have Ethans left. Like, if you find exactly Fire Typhlosion, or like research into Fire Typhlosion, Gust, I lose. And he didn't find those, and so I was able to win the game. So a good matchup for me, even though I was drawing kind of poorly. But yeah. Then I go up against Emily, who did make day two from our position, playing Goldango. The first game was like really, really close, and I ended up like Ionoing Emily like down to one. He did like reveal that he played two Lavencia in game one, which is like really important because I thought I had won the Stadium War, but he ended up putting a Lavencia down towards the end of the game, which made it really difficult for me to stabilize the end of the game. And at the end of the game, I owned them down to two, I believe, one or two, and devoed. And they ended up finding boss SCR to close out the game on my Fez. And then game two, I ended up winning pretty handedly. And then game three, we have like 5 minutes, if that, when the round starts. And we hadn't discussed any gentlemen's. So I opened, got into Jellicent. They were like kind of breaking. They only had two Goldengos. At this point, I had like 60 damage on the bench Goldengo, 160 on the active. They draw for turn, they Genesect. I basically think I have it, like, because I devo their board down to just Genesect. And so when it comes back to my turn, I can win the game by popping Genesect. But they end up going boss on something else, so I can't put the energies in my discard. And then benching a bunch of stuff with Nest Balls and Poffins. So in reality, the game was like mine to win. But Emily knew that that would be a tie, and that's exactly what happened. This format is not built for 3 games. Let's just say that. So, and then my deciding round was against Shrimpei, who I actually played twice in Champions Leagues over in Japan. Which is kind of funny because this is like our tiebreaker game. Game one, Shrimpei opened bundle and nothing else, and I was able to pretty much win pretty quickly. Game two, they had like a pretty god start going into double Morgrim off the Evo on turn one, going second, opening Tatsugiri as well. So they were guaranteed a supporter. They were pretty much in like a really good spot that I couldn't really answer. And I looked through my deck and I prized Monkey Dark. So I conceded to go to game three, so we have plenty of time. And then in game three, I prized Secret Box, double Ultra Ball, Guardy Fez, when I had already used 2 Ultra Balls to start the game, and I had to get a Mew to draw cards because my hand was awful. So I actually had no way to get Guardian to play the turn I could have, and just put a lot of pressure on, because I wanted to put a ton of pressure on with Jellicent, and then, or Screamtail the Morgrim that turn, and then put myself in a really good spot to just be like, okay, you have 1 Grimmsnarl, you're limited to that. But I wasn't able to do that, and then game 3, they, were able to just pretty much get ahead, and I couldn't really do much. Like, I put them on, they used their bundle and their boss early, so I put them on having their last boss, and they did find their last boss, which knocked me out of the tournament. So that game against Shrimpei felt pretty helpless for me. In the Summit game, maybe I could have played a little bit better. And then against Haru, I think the prize cards is what actually doomed me pretty poorly. Against Emily, maybe I could have scooped. I don't know. Like, Guardy is a hard deck to determine with time like this, and the players that are at the World Championships are really good. So you don't really get the like free rolls of like people making mistakes against you, or you do less. So it was a little bit frustrating. Kian did play the same 60 to get his win in, which was awesome. But as you can see, the tournament is like really tough. You can see all these like really good names like Caleb Gettimer. You can see like Antoine Boulet, like all these very, very strong names who are eliminated pretty early on in the tournament, because it is one of the most brutal tournaments of the year. So thank you guys for the support, as always. I'm still recovering a little bit. If I sound sick or whatever, I'm not, I promise. I'm just like exhausted. But we'll come back next year. We'll try again. It's just a lot of frustration that I have to wait a whole year, but we'll get them. See you guys.